Friends, welcome to Holy Trinity Catholic Church, where we believe, belong, and become. Risking faith, seeking sign. Risking faith, seeking a sign. On this fourth Sunday of Advent, we light the candle of love. But love demands that we take a risk. Love seeks for signs. In the first reading, we see the discourse of Ahaz. While God is trying to give him a sign, is putting limits to God's graciousness. A baby is a God's design that the world should go on, that the salvation will continue. But faith is the threshold. Ahaz failed the test. He said, I will not ask. I will not tempt the Lord. Joseph, however, in the gospel becomes the paragon of faith, the prototype of the one who is risking faith to seek a sign. God gives the ultimate options for Ahaz. Ask me anything as deep as the netherworld, as high as the sky. Ahaz was given an opportunity to trust God. God will be faithful to his promises. That is said and done. But are we ready, prepared to risk faith and to seek a sign? In the second reading, Paul classifies himself into three categories. First, three ways of living faith, risking faith. Paul calls himself as a slave of faith. Notice the word. That was an intentional use of the word slave of faith. Two, he calls himself an apostle. Apostolion, the one who is sent out on a mission. And third, Paul calls himself as the one who is set apart. These three, a slave, the one who is called to be an apostle, and the one who is set apart. This was such an unusual thing for a Roman citizen to call himself a slave, which would be countercultural, which would be to break the conventions of the day. But Paul sees a greater proclamation when he becomes the slave of Christ, embracing the lordship of Christ in his life. Each of these designations, a slave, an apostle, and set apart, contain a humble acknowledgement of God's initiative and Paul's own calling. Faith compels us to become a slave of the proclamation. Faith compels us to take risk. Faith compels us to become the messengers. And faith certainly classifies us, puts us in the category of those who are set apart. In the gospel, despite all the excitement of the eschatological fulfillment, despite all the assurance of faith and peace and abundance, on this fourth Sunday, the mystery of the incarnation is challenging us whether as to we are prepared to risk the gift of faith. Ahaz, in the first reading, was unable to take the step of faith. He failed to take the leap of faith, trusting in God. Despite God telling him, ask me anything, as deep as the netherworld, as high as the sky. But Ahaz kept saying, I will not ask. I will not tempt the Lord. In contrast, Joseph embraced the dilemma and trusted God. the promise of God being fulfilled in him, he was prepared to risk faith. Will we enter deeply into a life of faith and commitment, or merely participate on the externals of the celebration of Christmas? Faith is asking us to dive deep at this Christmas, like Joseph did. If such is faith is compelling us to trust God's promises, we will then embrace the responsibility of being a slave of Christ, becoming an apostle of Christ, a messenger of Christ, and we will not be afraid to be set apart for the mission of Christ. What is the function of our faith at this Christmas? Are we ready to risk our faith in seeking a sign? This is our task as we complete the season of Advent and arrive at the mountain of the Lord. To live our faith, to risk our faith, trusting in God's promises as a slave, as an apostle, and as the one who is set apart. Like Joseph, like St. Paul, are we ready to risk our faith and seek a sign? And when the Lord appears, when we arrive at the mountain of the Lord, we will see the Lord face to face. Are we ready to risk our faith and seek a sign as a slave of Christ, as a messenger of Christ, and as a person and as people and community set apart for Christ? Risking faith, seeking sign. Father Praveen Lakisetti, here at Holy Trinity Catholic Church in San Antonio, Texas. Thank you and God bless.